Ukraine Today is joined by Ihor Savchenko. He's a producer on the film Brothers, The Final Confession, which is premiering here tonight in Kyiv. Ihor, many thanks for joining us. Tell us about your impressions on the opening. I understand you've just been to Hamburg as well, where they've also opened the film.
And before I've been to Odessa, and it was the same opening, but in Odessa, and our crew was in different other cities. So the premiere, let's say, so before premiere screens was very well taken, even in the city like Odessa, which is addicted to, let's say, more easygoing films, more comedies, and they took it very well, really. So in Hamburg, we established it, let's say, sort of each one time per month they screen Ukrainian cinema, they screen Ukrainian films. It was began from Babylon 13 film, and after that it was screened 5 films. So it was the 5th films, and we make it very close to premiere in Ukraine. And it was let's say 60% of viewers were Ukrainian diaspora, and other was Germans, and it also was very well taken, and it was, I think it was 1.5 hour Q&A after that in the lobby of the cinema.
That's good. So when you were making the film, did you hope that it would also see a wide audience outside of Ukraine?
First of all, it's the film based on a Swedish novel, and it's quite a universal story. And second, it's a very strong story. So for sure, we predicted that the film will be very good. So let's say the threat was only in technical part of the film, but we invited, it's probably the best crew in Ukraine, so we were quite convincing that we will do the film as, let's say, successful as it is. And before, for sure, before this premiere, we started our festival road in the end of November of 13 in Goa, in India, and it was our first screening. It's Class A Film Festival, and it was quite early screening, but even there it was a lot of people and very well taken. And after that, Asia started to screen us in different festivals, like in Beijing, like in Shanghai, and
sounds
quite well.
It's
Moscow.
In Moscow, and also it did very well in Moscow as well, I believe, at the festival,
yes.
And it went down well. And I mean, some people have drawn links with the political situation between Russia and Ukraine, but like you just said, actually, so the first screening of the film was just around the time that the Euromaidan was starting here in Kyiv. But from what I understand from the director, Victoria, that was actually, it's all quite coincidental, because there was never really a major political agenda with this film, although some people now see it as the troubled relationship in the film between the two brothers is like the troubled relationship between Ukraine and Russia. How do you feel about those kinds of political reading?
Everybody tries to link this film to political situation, but when Victoria started the film, it was the end of zeros. It was not even looks like it could be like now for the moment. So, but the story is quite universal, and it's easy to link it to any situation which you have, to Syria situation, whatever. So it doesn't matter to what. So if the story is strong and universal, it can be linked to any, let's say, political situation, to any family situation, because it's not very political film. So it's not political at all, but it's much more linked to our negotiations inside families.
Yeah.
And if to talk about exactly that family lives in quite encapsulated society, and for such a society, like it in the original in the book, it's very north of Sweden, and in Ukraine it's very rural place, and it's quite normal when people do not talk to each other for 40 years, even they live next to each other.
Which is in the film, we have these two brothers, they live side by side, but they haven't spoken to each other for 40 years.
It's impossible in megapolises like big cities like Kyiv, like Lviv, like London or wherever. So it's impossible when you live next next door and not to talk in megapolis, it's quite difficult, because the speed of life it's much less in rural places.
And do you think, I felt like when I was watching it, this setting in the Carpathians, I mean, it seems to be extremely important to the story. I mean, you can argue that the story is universal, but at the same time, I don't feel like if it was in a city, if it was in London or in Kyiv, it wouldn't work in the same way. Do you agree with that?
It has to be a very rural place.
Yeah.
So the idea was to move the story from northern Sweden to something similar. So it could be mountains in Crimea, it could be some very deep forest, but Victoria first went to Carpathian Mountains and she fell in love with this place. And after we went for scouting, we found this place and it was amazing.
Obviously, it presented some difficulties of filming there because of the rural location and the conditions of the weather.
Yeah, so the place is disgusting from, let's say, technical part of shooting, because it's on the edge of mountains, and during the day it could be rain, sun, almost snow, and the temperature can go from, let's say, minus 20 till plus 10, and it was very difficult to work there. And also the place is on the hill, and it's we didn't have the appropriate road, let's say, to go upstairs. So our administration department, they built the road, but the road was destroyed after the first big rain. And so we built the stains. The stain was there. It was almost 1,000 of steps, and each day the crew went up and down many times, but they became healthy in there. So yes, it was quite difficult. We use all of imaginary and not imaginary equipment to bring our staff, equipment, costumes and everything, and parts of props and parts of buildings up there. So we use horses, we use different equipment, military equipment, and yeah, it was quite difficult.
Well, it came,
funny sometimes.
Well, it came out very well, I think, by the looks of things. The shots that you achieved and the production was wonderful. I was also wondering, at a time now in Ukraine, I wonder what you think about this. In Ukraine now, there's a lot of talk about decentralization, and we're talking about different regions of Ukraine. And this film has a very strong regional identity because of where it's set, and they speak a different language there, and they follow a certain way of life. I just wonder, and even actually here in Kyiv, as I understand, it's being shown with Ukrainian subtitles because the language is actually that different that people might need that. So I just wonder, in the current political climate, where there's so much talk about decentralization, and it seems quite pertinent, quite a film of its time in that sense. Would you agree with that?
I wouldn't like to link the film to any political reasons or situation. So if we talk about decentralization in general, for sure it's, let's say, quite important stuff, and it's important in not only in Ukraine. So the same situation is, for example, in Spain with Basque and with Catalonia and Andalusia, and the same is in Belgium, the same is in UK. It was referendum with Scotland not far time ago, and people are trying to be more close to each other. And from one point of view, it can destroy borders between countries like United Europe, but from other point of view, you want to be as close as is possible to taking a decision about your life. So you will be as close as possible to your mayor, I don't know, to parliament member. So it's difficult when the country is unit, and when it's like Russia, for example, when everything is in Moscow, and outside Moscow it's almost nothing. Yeah.
Igor, thank you very much. It seems like it's a film, I mean, I think very, very well suited now to contemporary Ukrainian society. I think it addresses a lot of issues.
Somehow, universal stories always talk about us. It doesn't matter what time, what place. It's talking about us.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for coming to speak with us.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. That was Ihor Savchenko, one of the producers on the film Brothers: The Final Confession, which is premiering here tonight in Kyiv. You're watching Ukraine Today.